Namaste. Welcome. If you're joining us online, welcome to you. So let's take a few minutes and dispel the stress of the day. Let's help us come into the here and now. So get a comfortable seat. And close your eyes. And for a few moments, just follow your breath. And let the thoughts slow down. Let the body relax. And find your heart. Find that place of kindness within yourself, that place where you love yourself, no matter what. And in that stillness, observe what's going on. Observe your thoughts, any body sensations, emotions. Be a witness to yourself. And as the mind slows down a little bit, as your body and emotions settle down, just entertain the possibility of stepping into that place of self-love. It's a place that's very still and if your mind and emotions are still somewhat disturbed, you can go back to a memory of a time when you felt completely aligned, completely clear. And that memory may allow you to capture a little bit of that right now, and then step into it. Body take care of themselves. You come into that inner space of deep, unconditional love, even if you don't experience it very deeply, but touch on it. Breathe your way into it. And it's right on the other side of all the veils of stressful thoughts and emotions. On the inside, interior to all the disruptions, to all the way you identify with your suffering, your pain, your fear, your desires. So it's a way of letting go, of relaxing into who and what you already are, what's already there. In that stillness, your own happiness will greet you. And if you get a hold of a little touch of that inner peace, that space of self-love, then for a moment just compare that to the moments when there are stressful thoughts and they have captured your mind, or negative emotions and they display themselves in the body, they send the body into turmoil. While that happens, that peace, that self-love is also present. It may be lost to your awareness, but it's always present. So notice both these extremes of your nature, the happiness, the peace, and the turmoil, the unhappiness. And relax even more into that inner space. The stillness of the ocean, while the waves on the surface still play. That stillness, that peace, that solid, unshakable security is always there. Only the mind feels insecure. Your being is always secure. Can you find that place where you love that love inside of you? Where you love this peace? Very good. Notice again, more acutely perhaps, what's going on inside you. Any thoughts, any body sensations, any uneasiness, any distractedness. And yet at the same time, do you have the taste of the inner stillness, the taste of that deep and secure self-love in the heart? And here you can see the value of a mantra. In that stillness, you say a mantra. It can absorb all the other thoughts and emotions that can come into your being. Just harmonize them into that word of supreme reality, like Ram or whatever mantra you use. Ram, 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 Ram. And it can take you deeper and deeper into the core of your being. The beautiful mantra is also, I am loving awareness. I am loving awareness. I am loving awareness. I am loving awareness. A deep breath. Exhale. Take another deep breath in. Again. I notice nobody's moving. It's wonderful. So, we have this wonderful space, and then we go through our days, and one of the most powerful things that gets us out of that space, that ruins our enjoyment of this moment and of life, are negative emotions. So I thought today I'll talk a little bit about how to deal with negative emotions. And I was going to read a little section from my book, HeartSourcing, that has to do with open attention. Open attention is the way we deal with negative emotions. Eckhart Tolle writes about it and calls it presence. And it's the same thing, except we use slightly different words. You can say you become present to the manifestations of your emotions. Open attention allows us to really know exactly perhaps what to do. We open up and we pay attention. But that's of course not what we do when we're first in the grip of a negative emotion. What do we do? When an emotion comes, we don't like it. That negative feeling, that fear, anger, grief, whatever. Anger, basically we sort of grab and then we act it out, or tend to act it out, or we push it back inside of us, and that's what we call depression, anger at oneself. And we all have sort of a storehouse of old memories of emotions and patterns of emotions that we carry along. And most of the time, thank God, we may not be aware of that, but for some people it's pretty permanent. But from time to time they wash in, so then what do we do? What we do instinctively out of our conditioning is we try to somehow not feel it. We try to somehow get rid of it. And the strategies that we use for that I call fight, flight, indulge, and complain, or in short, FFIC. Just a short formula that allows us to understand this and get a handle on it. So, fight, flight, indulge, and complain. And when we fight and we flee and we indulge and we complain, we can be sure of one thing. It may give us a momentary relief in some way or another, but we only make things worse. And that's what we're trained to do. That's what we instinctively do. So open attention shows us what we can do instead. And I jump right in the middle of this here, the chapter on open attention. The strange thing about healing emotions is that we already know what to do, but we don't know that we know. That means we cannot use the knowledge we already have. Let me illustrate this with a story. Imagine you're walking someplace, minding your own business, having a good time. You turn a corner, and there by the side of the road is a little girl who is crying and crying. She's about 4 or 5 years old and sobbing terribly. There's no one else around. What do? You know what to do. You walk up to the little girl and try to console her. You may ask her what's wrong, but she cannot answer because she's sobbing too hard. So what do? You put your arms around her and hold her. While you're holding her, feeling her little body shaking from head to toe, are you thinking about the movie you might go see tonight? Of course not. You're fully present with her. You're open and present, and your attention is fully on her. This is the way of kindness. After a while, the girl's sobs die down, and soon she wiggles out of your arms and she's off playing again. You may never know what was wrong. It doesn't matter. Her pain is resolved. Now what resolved it? The pain of the little girl was released because you added something she could not yet do for herself. You added your conscious presence, your openness, your attention, your caring. That little girl stands for the feeling inside you. Her crying represents the stressful body sensations you've been treating with FFIC. Flight, running away from it, fighting it off. indulging or complaining. Now think for a moment about how you have reacted to your own feelings in the past. If your feelings were that little girl, how have you been treating her? So you can go back to some reliably stressful emotion, and you know the type of situation that brings that up. So bring that up in your mind, and perhaps you have a recent example of that. Remember where you were, and there is that emotion again, that inner reaction that makes you uncomfortable. It can be something very old or something just recent. So how have you been reacting to that? Out of that old conditioning. So, if your feelings were that little girl, how have you been treating her? Reimagine the scene, using the scene of the little girl as a metaphor for your emotions. You're taking a walk, minding your own business, then you turn the corner and see and hear the little girl crying, which means you become aware of your stressful emotion and body sensations, which go hand in hand. As soon as you notice her, you run the other way. I need to get out of here. I don't have the time for this, or help, if I deal with her, I might get completely overwhelmed by her pain. This is the flight reflex. Does it make sense? If you were in this situation with the little girl, does that make sense? Of course not. But wait, it gets worse. You might pick up a big stick from the side of the road and beat her into the ground until you can't hear her cries anymore. That's the fight reflex. You repress your emotions. Or you hand her a candy or a beer, a joint, or a pill to silence her, which is the flight reflex again, to escape from feelings, and it's the root of all addiction. We have a name for this kind of behavior: criminal insanity. You would get locked up if you treated a little girl like this, and rightfully so. But we routinely do this to ourselves and consider it normal. When you think about that, that's how we treat ourselves. It's criminally insane. But we do it all along. We have done it for all our lives. And if we see it as just as crazy as it is, maybe then it's easier to change, because then when you're in the middle of it and you hate yourself for this feeling and you just want to get rid of it, and you remember this, wait a minute, how am I treating this little girl right now? Then out of recalling this story, this metaphor, it may become easy for you to switch into some semblance of sanity. So let's see what that looks like. But first, we have to look at a few other responses to the little girl, your feelings. You could feel sorry for her, yet do nothing to help her. This is self-pity, the common passive surrender to unhappiness, a way of indulging. You can tell yourself, oh, there's nothing I can do. I felt like this since I was a kid, and oh, whenever this happens, then this is happening, and and this is total victim talk. Another option is to complain about her. She's terrible, crying and carry on like this. Why doesn't she just shut up and go away? Internally, so such self-rejection and self-hate simply increase pain. And by repressing it, they assure that it stays within us. Then there is letting go and bypassing, two immensely popular escape strategies. The concept of letting go of a thought or emotion that hurts appears like a good idea. very popular these days. But it's not the same as being done with something. When you let go, you feel better, but a small seed of the pain stays within you. Give it some time, and from that seed, it will sprout again. One of the examples of letting go is the common way that we forgive. So you think somebody hurt you, excuse me. And hopefully the time comes when you're tired of holding that grudge and carrying on, feeling bad about that, and you say, okay, I'm just going to forgive that person. And that's a wonderful movement. It's definitely a movement in the right direction. But here is where it's lacking. You still believe that that person hurt you, and all of that drama that got you upset and hurt and maybe fearful in the first place was real. So you forgive that person, and maybe 90% or more of it goes. But some seed remains. You still think, this person hurt me, and I better be careful, maybe. Or, this is an unfriendly world. Or, I get hurt easily by people. Or whatever it may be. So some seed remains. That pattern remains in you. That is not freedom. Freedom is when you're done with something. And that's what the goal of heart sourcing is. So, let's look at bypassing. Bypassing occurs when you deny a problem and escape to higher ground. Because, here's an example, because a husband watches porn, he neglects his wife. When she asks for some attention and intimacy, her husband, who thinks of himself as very spiritual and open-minded, withdraws and says, I don't have a problem, you shouldn't be so needy, it's all an illusion anyway. These unconscious and unthinking defense strategies against your negative emotions cannot set you free. Instead, they are sure that you will continue to carry them inside you. Over time, they will cause you to fall into other, ever more painful emotions, into chronic defensiveness, rage, self-hate, hopelessness, and despair. In other words, it festers, it gets worse. As long as you treat your emotions unconsciously as if they are a threat or an enemy, and wage war against them, your suffering will only increase. And you do not have to learn what to do, because you already know. You just have to connect the dots here. You know intuitively how you can console a crying child or help an adult in trouble. We all know that friendliness of the heart. We are not starting from zero. You knew when I told you the scenario of you meeting this little girl crying, there's nobody else, what do you do? You knew that the right response is go and console her. We all have helped others intuitively and with open attention without knowing it. It is just simple, sane human behavior. Now we can use our capacity for kindness for ourselves and treat us with the inborn benevolence of the heart. Thoreau spoke of the unhappiness we have amassed since our childhood when he said, most men lead lives of quiet desperation. The reason for this desperation lies in the fact that we have not known how to be kind to us, but have waged war against a part of us, our own emotions. If we do nothing, this habit will continue and become more pronounced over the years. Without knowing it, we are feeding the inner pain while we remain distracted on the surface of our lives. The feelings will fester and appear ever more frightening and upsetting. Freedom and mastery can come when we open to our emotions and pay attention to their body sensations. And of course, the core of that is the recognition that we have reacted to our own emotions, our own feelings, this big and important part of us, like it was an enemy or a threat. Fight, flight, indulge, complain. And it isn't that. Our feelings are a part of us, the negative feelings are a part of us that need help. And when we understand that, a whole other positive approach becomes possible. We, of course, we don't tell ourselves consciously this is a threat or this is an enemy, but we have treated our own feelings as though they were. So this switch of understanding your own emotions as a part of you that needs help changes everything. It changes your physical brain. Your brain, with that understanding, will start to create new pathways of thought that carry kindness into your life, that carry an awareness of an emotional skillfulness that we have not learned when we were children. But it's never too late, because we already know that basic sanity of human kindness. We have it in us. We just haven't known how to use it with us. So here is open attention in a nutshell. When you sense a negative emotion, begin by becoming still and bringing your attention to the here and now. Feel what is going on in your body. Mentally scan through your body and identify the exact location of the body sensations that express the emotion. So each emotion is displayed in the body as a body sensation. The lump in the throat, the knot in the stomach, the heaviness on the shoulders, etc. So if there are several of these sensations, focus on the one that is strongest. Stay with one at a time. Next, open to that sensation. Notice if you're pulling back or tensing up out of old habit. Open again. Breathe. Relax while maintaining your focus. Simply be present with the sensation the way you would be present with a child that is in distress and needs help. So these emotions, they're like your children that are unattended to, that are, crying, and their cries is the pain, is the discomfort you're feeling. Can you understand that? And can you follow the discomfort down to its source as that body sensation and bring the healing that is needed? Recall that the body sensations is a part of you that needs help. That is so important. Feel what is going on in you. Feel it as deeply as you can. Be aware of your fundamental caring and love expressed through this inner awareness. Maintain your inner focus and notice what happens. So it's very simple. It's basically we're doing the opposite of fight, flight, indulge, or complain. We're not running away. We're not beating up on this part of us. We're not complaining about it. And we're not letting ourselves fall into it with self-pity or other ways of indulging. We go there, we open up to ourselves, to this part of us, and we pay attention. And with that, we bring into this moment, into this emotion, our basic caring. And that basic caring does two things. It begins to heal the emotion. Maybe not on your time scale, but on the time scale of that emotion. So allow it. Keep doing it. Because we have reacted to our own emotions as though they were threats and enemies for how many years? For how many thousands of times? Every time you felt an old habitual emotion, you clam up, you tighten up, your jaw tightens, your shoulders get rigid, your speech patterns reflect it, etc. We've done this how many thousands of times? Now do it, and if it is a few hundred times, do it and bring into your being this caring, this deep love that is waiting inside of you to be expressed. And it will heal that emotional layer of your being, and that in turn will give you easier access to the core of your heart, to that deep caring in you. You see how it works hand in hand? So when you notice that a negative emotion is triggered, consider that a blessing. A blessing, and it's only a blessing when you know what to do. When you don't know what to do, it is not a blessing, it just becomes worse. You know, you're back into that downward spiral. But when you know what to do, suddenly the spiral goes upward. Then every moment when you can have the presence of mind to feel how you're feeling bad, or how this or that hurt you, or how you recall some old grief, you're missing somebody who died, or who you don't hear about anymore, then find that place in you that feels that. And let it elicit the love of your heart. Let it draw the love of your heart into that place of pain, that place of discomfort. And with that, your heart will strengthen. The ability to love yourself will be honed and firmed up and begin to become second nature to you. So when you have a stressful emotion, young or old, it's your love that is being called. Your heart is being called to awaken and to come to the aid of this part of you. So the more painful emotions you have, the better. Well, maybe we don't want to go all that far. But yeah, we all have as much of this old baggage as we do have. There's nothing we can do about that. That's what we have. But there is a lot we can do about it now. Because we have that, so there's another thing. You identify what it is that you have. That old fear, that old pain, that old reactiveness, that old anger. And ask yourself, what's the exact opposite of that? That's what it's for. Your being is destined, if you have fear, let's say, and you identify the opposite of fear as love. Now, for some people, the opposite of fear may be something else. It may be courage, it may be peace. But let's just say, so here we have an example. Fear is an old pattern, and you say love seems like the strongest opposite of that. Well, that fear is there to teach you to love. So whenever that fear shows up, know this is a lesson in love. And don't just blindly fall into that fear and feel miserable. You know what that's like. You've done it. We've all done it. God knows how many times. But when that fear is there, that's a lesson of love. Now, what if you were to really want to know love? Well, go for the fear. Expose yourself internally, even externally, to what scares you. In manageable doses. Don't step into a lion cage without protection. That's not the idea. But, if you have a phobia of snakes, don't start handling a snake. But expose yourself in little ways. Feel the feelings. Bring the love to them. Soften it up. Love yourself. It's not that hard. That love is already inside of you. It's just been unused. It's been sitting around waiting for somebody to notice. Well, maybe that somebody can be you. Because that's how you're designed. That's how we're all designed. We're designed with problems so we can find the antidotes. And the antidotes are already all in us. Because in the inner core, there's a place that is completely already enlightened. That's that cave of the heart we speak about. And out of that, you can bring any elixir, any power that can dissolve what is wrong in your life and set you free. And with that, the access to that inner core becomes more and more clear, more and more second nature to you. Until one day you notice the old trigger event happens and there's no reaction. There's no fear, there's no anger, there's no grief, there's nothing. And you notice, hey, this is clear. And then, a day later it may come and you stumble again, you fall into it again. That's okay. Sometimes these things come stronger. It's like the training is over when it's over. But if we understand the training is training and don't mistake it for, terrible karma, horrible fate, the injustice of the world, or some other dramatic interpretation, then when we know it's training, the fear is training for love, etc., then what really can happen to you that is truly bad? Yeah, some things are difficult. But nothing then can be truly bad. Because even a serious illness, for instance, or somebody close to you dying, or your own dying process, is something that on this deep soul level you can only gain from. The love can only become greater. But the price for that is your pain, is your old hang-ups, is your old anger. And of course what we do is we hold on to it. Yeah, I'll be enlightened, but I'm going to hold on to my old baggage because that is who I think I am. Well, are you really? Or I should say, do you want to be that? It's up to you how you identify yourself, how you experience yourself. I got an email today from a very perceptive young man. And he said that he saw that suffering is easier than happiness. And it impressed him to see that because he saw a part of his pain body. And of course it isn't. He knew that too. But there is a place in the mind that is that crazy. That says suffering is easier than happiness. Why? Because I'm used to it. So you're going to have to make these decisions if you want to be free of your suffering. You're going to have to actually give it up. And on the surface, we say, yeah, of course I want to give up my suffering. Well, look a little deeper in the places where you're still holding on to it. And they're there, or you would be already free of it. But who is running the show? Your old conditioned ego or your true self, which is always free of suffering, which you really can't wait to experience? It's up to you who's running the show. The ego has the power to hold on to its patterns of suffering forever. But you're not that ego. You're the one who wants to be free. So empower that. Remember the story of the two wolves? Mm-hmm. The black and the white wolves are inside of my chest and they're fighting to the death. Which one will win? The one I feed.
Yeah.
So stop feeding the black wolf. How do you feed the black wolf? FFIC. Fight, flight, indulge, complain. How do you feed the white wolf? By making it very, very clear to yourself that you are committed to your freedom and your enlightenment by whatever name you name that. You are committed to that and you are pursuing that, and you put all the resources and abilities at your disposal in the service of that. Then you are serving yourself and you're serving humanity the best way you can. Because if humanity needs one thing, it doesn't need do-gooders, we got plenty of those. It needs beings who are free, who can show the rest of us that we too are capable of that, free of this morass of old suffering that repeats itself and spreads itself to your children, to your loved ones, to people around you, to everyone around you, inevitably. When you are the suffering being, that's what you're broadcasting, consciously or unconsciously. When you're the free being, that's what you're broadcasting. And you don't have to write a book or do stuff like, what some people do. Your job is just to be free. Your job is to be happy. Your job is to be free of everything that has made you unhappy in the past. And in that way, you are serving humanity in the most powerful way. So it's funny, that freedom is in itself a yoga. To pursue that freedom, the karma yoga of being free of karma is what helps you to be free of karma. But you have to make the decision, and you have to have the strength to overcome the old, gooey, unconscious ways of the ego to hold on to its old ways. Okay.
There is a
There's a question?
Well, I don't know.
Or comment?
Denise says, I've been questioning everything lately. We just selected. Which has really shaken me. I worry that I'm becoming nihilistic.
Nihilistic, huh?
Sometimes I feel like I've delved into reading on spiritual/consciousness too quickly. Like an unprepared child who watched an R-rated movie.
Denise, is her name? Denise, isn't it that you're attracted to this type of literature for a reason? Perhaps, we use this metaphor of peeling the layers of the onion. Perhaps you're just ready to let go of some of these layers of the onion very quickly. That can be unsettling to the old ego, the old way of how you've been living life. Yes, I know. This path is not for sissies, and you're not a sissy. It takes courage. And you're in the middle of it. And in the middle of it, then sometimes, and I know this really well, we have second thoughts and say, oh my God, maybe this was a mistake. Maybe I shouldn't go so fast. Maybe whatever, right? The other option is to trust yourself. It's like jumping over an abyss. The abyss from the old way of illusion to a new way of living in clarity and peace. And you can't jump over an abyss in 2 jumps. But everyone in the middle of that jump has second thoughts and says, oh, wait a minute, look down, this is way down here, this is not safe, I want to be back there, I want my mommy. So, that's human nature. So you're right up here in the air and you want to be back with mommy, and you know what? There's no way back. But what you need to have support. There are 3 factors that support us in this. One is we have to have an ultimate goal. So be clear about your goal. What is it that you're wanting to achieve? How do you name it? Do you call it enlightenment? Do you call it freedom? I know you don't call it nihilism. Nihilism is simply the denial of everything. But that questioning simply shows you that so much that perhaps you have believed turns out not to be true. Well, it turns out not to be true because it isn't. It has never been true in the first place. So that process is unsettling for the ego. Some traditions talk about ego death. That's what that is like. But what dies is not the ego itself. The ego that dies is like the old skin of a snake, and it gets sort of stripped off, and the snake says, no, 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 this is me, I need this, and you don't, because there it goes. So the first part is that ultimate goal, so you need to have a clear idea of that goal, and perhaps that's been a little shaky, and so if you don't know where you intend to land on this jump over the abyss, then it's even more scary when you're in the middle of the flight. The other thing you need to know is the means, the techniques, what the practices, what can you do to facilitate this transition? And there are many good techniques around. We talk about some of them. And trust your genuine search to bring you the right means. But the most important part of that is the support of other beings on this journey to freedom. The Buddha was once asked, in the Buddhist tradition, they're called the three jewels, the ultimate goal. In Buddhism, of course, it's called the Buddha or Buddha mind. Then we have the teachings, and we have the support of the Sangha or Satsang, the spiritual family, if you will. So these are the three jewels, and the Buddha was once asked, of these three jewels, which one is the most important? And he said, the support, the Sangha in Buddhist terms, the Sangha, the Sangha, the Sangha. We call it Satsang. We use the Sanskrit term. The spiritual family, the support, the teachers and the peers that walk with you on this path. Because it's because of them that you can find some solidity, some ground under your feet, even in mid-jump. Because they will tell you, yes, I've been there, I've done this, I know what it feels, it's really unsettling. It really makes you doubt yourself, it makes you want to move back, but there isn't really a way back, and it's safe. The ground on the other side of the abyss will rise up to meet you at the right time. And this investigation, this, what did she call it in the, what she's doing? She didn't use the word investigation.
Nihilistic?
No, before that. This questioning.
Questioning everything.
Yeah, this questioning of everything.
Shaking.
Right, I call it an investigation. That is so essential, because without that questioning, we stay stuck to the old beliefs and the old way of thinking, and well, we've been there, we know what that's like. Do you really want to still continue to live there? So don't worry too much about that feeling of unsettled and being unsafe. That's the nature of a transition. But also know that this is a loving universe, that in the very core of your being, there's nothing but tremendous, boundless, unconditional love. And in that you will find yourself, not the old ego model, not the old snake skin, but the true self that you are. That brilliant and glorious inner peace and inner vitality and inner security. You will find them. They're already there. It's just that peeling away the layers of the onion sometimes makes us cry. So then it's good to have someone who understands, or perhaps you have friends. Hopefully you have a small community of close beings who understand you. I've worked a lot with people who had no one, and that's very, very difficult. When people around you think what's going on with you is crazy. and don't understand it, and worse, send you to a psychiatrist who puts you on medication and tells you you're schizophrenic or something. So that is not true. The path that we're on in this spiritual endeavor is in the East called the path of nobles in some traditions. And there's a price to be paid to be in that category. And the price is our old way of being. But this transition, this growth, people have pursued that for thousands of years. And it is completely safe. Just find the support that you need to get a sense of your own stability in this transition. That would be my advice. Anything else? Any other questions? Comments? Brainstorms? No? Okay. Well, thank you for joining, and hope to see you again next Tuesday. Namaste.